The grand hall of Verathorn Castle shone with golden light. Torches lined the walls like silent sentinels, their flames flickering against banners that told stories of past kings and ancient battles. Tonight, the hall was alive. Nobles in heavy silk robes whispered among themselves. Knights polished their armor by the firelight. Minstrels played tunes that seemed too delicate for the weight of the hall, as though their music could be broken at any moment. At the center of it all sat King Atheron, the Alpha King, a ruler whose presence seemed to bend the very air around him. His dark eyes scanned the hall, sharp and calculating, catching even the smallest sign of unrest. The feast laid before him was a display of opulence: silver cups, golden plates, roasted meats, and exotic fruits glimmering like jewels. Yet despite the laughter, the clinking of goblets, and the lively chatter, there was tension in the air, a feeling that something unseen lurked in the corners of the hall. Among the crowd of servants, moving quietly with careful steps, was Lyria, a shy Omega. She had been a servant all her life, and the palace had taught her to make herself small, to blend into the shadows. She kept her gaze low and her hands folded neatly, moving from table to table with an unassuming grace. No one paid her much attention, and that suited her just fine. But tonight, Lyria felt something she had never felt before. A sharp, wrong scent drifted through the hall. It was faint at first, almost hidden among the smells of roast meats and burning torches. But it was there, and only she could sense it. Her heart skipped a beat. She knew this scent. She had read of it in old forbidden scrolls, a poison unlike any ordinary venom, one that could take the life of even an alpha in moments. It was not the common poisons that guards were trained to detect. It was ancient, magical, and deadly. The crowd around the king laughed, unaware. The nobles cheered as Atheron raised his goblet to speak, but Lyria's stomach turned. The air smelled of cold metal, bitter herbs, and a strange, almost imperceptible smoke curling like a silent threat. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus, to separate the scent from the feast, from the warmth of the hall, from the perfume of nobles. And then she saw it. A shadow flitted across the king's table, quick, careful, almost invisible. Someone had poisoned his cup. She froze for a heartbeat, unsure of what to do. No Omega had ever dared speak to the king, let alone warn him of danger. Fear pressed against her chest like a weight, urging her to flee, to hide, to pretend she had seen nothing. But her sense of duty, her instinct to protect, was stronger than her fear. Her voice, quiet and trembling, escaped her lips. "My king, don't breathe." The hall froze. Forks hovered in midair. Glasses clinked against plates in sudden silence. Nobles gasped, their eyes snapping toward the small, pale figure standing near the edge of the crowd. King Atheron turned. His gaze, sharp as a blade, fell on Lyria. For a long moment, no one spoke. The guards stiffened, hands hovering near swords. Atheron's dark eyes seemed to pierce through her, reading the fear, the honesty, the truth behind her trembling words. Then, just as quickly, he smelled it too, the faint curl of poison in the air, invisible to everyone else. His jaw tightened, and he leaned slightly away from the cup in his hand. The crowd erupted into panic. Guards surged forward, but Atheron's voice cut through the chaos. "Stop." It was low, commanding, unyielding. The hall fell silent again, save for the whisper of shocked breaths. All eyes were on the king, and on the Omega, who had dared speak to him. He stood, every movement precise, every step measured. He approached the table with Lyria, and in a voice that trembled with both authority and curiosity, he asked, "You smell it?" She nodded, barely daring to meet his gaze. Her hands shook. "Yes, my king. It is poison. Strong magic. It will kill, if not now, then soon." The king examined the cup. His eyes narrowed. He glanced around the hall, observing every guest, every noble, every servant. He noticed a subtle movement in the shadows near the end of the hall, a figure slipping away, careful, deliberate. Atheron's face hardened. "Guards," he said. "Find them." The guards sprang into action, rushing toward the fleeing figure. Lyria watched in awe and fear. She had saved the king, yet in the same instant, she realized the danger had only begun. The hall remained tense. Whispers low and hurried. No one dared question what had happened. They could only stare at the king and the Omega who had done what no one else could. Atheron turned to Lyria. For a moment, he simply looked at her. She felt exposed, vulnerable. Yet something in his eyes was not anger, not punishment, not disdain. There was acknowledgement. "You saved my life," he said, his voice low. "Come with me." Her heart pounded. My king, Now," he interrupted gently, but firmly. "I need you in my chambers." Lyria swallowed hard, a mixture of fear and awe rising in her chest. She had never been summoned to the king's private chambers before. To be near him in this way, it was terrifying and thrilling all at once. As the guards escorted her through the winding corridors of the palace, the sounds of the feast faded behind them. The torches lining the hallways cast long, dancing shadows on the stone walls. She could feel the weight of the palace around her, the history, the power, the danger, and she could feel the king's presence beside her, strong, protective, yet unreadable. Finally, they reached the private wing. The doors were carved with ancient runes, wards of protection, glowing faintly in the dim light. Atheron stepped aside, allowing her to enter first. The chamber was vast, filled with books, maps, and relics from battles long past. The air smelled faintly of herbs and wax, of old parchment and stone. And there, behind a large desk, stood the king, his eyes fixed on her. "You have a gift," he said quietly, almost to himself. "A gift that no one else in this palace possesses." Lyria's stomach tightened. I only sensed the poison. My king. I did not mean—" "You did what others could not," he interrupted, his gaze steady. "And because of that, you are here. Not as a servant, not as a bystander, but as someone who may very well decide the fate of this kingdom." Her hands trembled. Her mind raced. To be called important by the king himself, it was overwhelming. And yet, beneath the fear, a spark of pride ignited. Atheron studied her carefully. "Do you understand the danger you face?" I think so," she whispered. "It is strong magic. It wants to kill." He nodded. "Yes, and it will not stop until it succeeds. That is why I need you." Lyria's heart thudded in her chest. "Me? Yes. You have a sense that none of my soldiers or advisors possess. You can detect what others cannot. That is rare." The words made her cheeks flush. She had spent her life hiding, blending in, staying invisible. And now, she was noticed. By the Alpha King himself. A silence stretched between them, heavy and charged. The firelight danced across the walls, casting shadows that seemed to move like living things. Lyria felt as if she were standing on the edge of something vast and unknown. Finally, the king spoke again, his voice low and commanding. "Tonight, you stay here. You will rest, but you will not leave. I cannot allow this threat to go unchecked. And you, I cannot allow you to face it alone." "Oh, Nigraine." Lyria nodded, words failing her. She had never imagined that her life, small and quiet, would take such a turn. That her senses, once considered insignificant, could hold the life of a king in their balance. As she settled into a small chair near the fire, Atheron's eyes softened slightly. Not in weakness, but in a rare moment of trust. He stood, his silhouette tall and commanding. Yet for the first time, Lyria saw something in him she had not expected. A man who feared for his life, who relied on her, who depended on her. And though she had never known such power, such responsibility, she felt it now, rising in her chest like a tide. She had saved the Alpha King, and somehow, in that act, she had changed her fate forever. Outside the chamber, the castle hummed with whispers and fears. Somewhere in the shadows, the poisoner had not been caught. Somewhere in the hallways, the threat still lingered. But inside, in the flickering light of the king's chamber, a bond had begun, fragile, tentative, and charged with unspoken understanding. And as Lyria drifted into uneasy sleep, the last thought in her mind was a single, trembling question. Had she saved the king, or had she only begun a path she could never turn back from? The morning after the feast, the castle of Verathorn seemed quieter than usual. The golden torches had been replaced by sunlight, streaming through tall, stained glass windows. The hallways smelled faintly of herbs and old stone, but the tension from last night lingered like a shadow that refused to move. Lyria awoke in the king's private chambers, a room she had never imagined entering. It was vast and filled with ancient relics, towering shelves of books, and maps of the kingdom pinned to the walls. The air was thick with the weight of history, and the sunlight seemed almost too gentle compared to the flickering danger of last night. King Atheron had not left her side. He sat across from her at a small table, quietly observing her as she stirred awake. His dark eyes, sharp and unyielding, softened only slightly when they met hers. "You are awake," he said simply. His voice carried no judgment, only calm. "Sleep well?" Lyria hesitated, unsure how to answer. I tried." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I keep thinking about last night. About the poison." Atheron leaned back in his chair, studying her. "You were right to warn me," he said. "No one else would have noticed. Perhaps no one else could have. That is why you are here." She swallowed hard, feeling a mix of fear and pride. "But what if it happens again? What if someone tries to hurt you?" Her words faltered. She had never spoken to a king like this, and yet, somehow, she felt that he would understand. "I trust you," Atheron said quietly. "I do not trust many in this palace. Many would see your warning as foolish or threatening. But you see what others cannot." Lyria's hands trembled in her lap. She had spent her life blending into shadows, unnoticed and unheard. To be recognized by the Alpha King himself was overwhelming. And yet, beneath her fear, a spark of something new ignited an understanding that perhaps she had power, even if it was small, even if it was dangerous. The king rose from his chair and moved to a table covered with maps and scrolls. "We must find the source of this threat," he said. "I will not risk my life or my kingdom because of a shadow in the hall." Lyria followed him cautiously. As she approached, she noticed faint marks on the floor, almost invisible, like smoke curling over stone. Her senses tingled. She could feel the residue of the same poison she had sensed before. Her heart raced. "This way," she whispered, pointing. Atheron knelt, examining the faint trace. "You are certain?" "Yes," she said, her voice firmer now. "It leads to the East Wing. Someone has been hiding there. Someone with knowledge of the ancient curses." He nodded, his expression serious. "Then, we will investigate. Together." The pair moved through the corridors quietly, Lyria guiding the way. As they reached the East Wing, the castle grew colder, the sunlight fading as if the walls themselves were absorbing it. Shadows pooled in the corners, stretching like dark fingers. The air smelled faintly of smoke and herbs. a strange mixture that set Lyria's nerves on edge. Atheron's hand rested lightly on the hilt of his sword, his posture alert and commanding. "Stay close," he said, his voice low. "This is no ordinary poisoner. Whoever did this knows the palace and its secrets." They reached a narrow hallway lined with ancient tapestries. Lyria paused, sensing something stronger here. Her nose twitched. The faint curl of smoke was stronger, almost tangible. She closed her eyes, following it. "Here," she whispered. "Someone passed through here recently." Atheron's eyes narrowed. "Then we are close," they continued. And the scent grew sharper. Lyria's breathing quickened. She had never felt anything like this before. This magic was old, ancient, and dangerous. It was tied to something deeper than murder or greed. It was tied to curses long thought forgotten. Finally, they reached a door at the end of the hallway. The air beyond it shimmered faintly, as if alive. Lyria hesitated. "The poison? It's here," she said. "And it's not just poison. It's part of a curse." Atheron placed a hand on the door, his eyes steady. "Show me." Lyria stepped forward, her senses straining. She could feel the threads of magic, dark and winding, hidden in the stone and wood. It was subtle, but she could follow it like a trail of smoke in the wind. She pointed to faint carvings on the doorframe, ancient runes that pulsed faintly with power. "This is old magic," she whispered. "Older than the palace. It seeks to bind life, to twist it. Whoever made it, they wanted to kill through fear and control. Not by sword or fire, but through the air we breathe." Atheron frowned. "And you can sense it?" "Yes," she said. "But I feel it tied to me somehow. My bloodline. It carries the mark of this curse." The king's dark eyes widened slightly. "Your family?" Lyria nodded. "Generations ago, there was a pact. My ancestor broke it, and the magic turned against us. It's why I can smell it when no one else can." Atheron's expression softened, though only slightly. "Then, this is more than a threat to me. This is a test of your gift." "Yes," she whispered, uncertainty creeping into her voice. "You will not be alone," Atheron said firmly. "If this curse hunts the crown, then we face it together." For the first time, Lyria felt a warmth in his presence, a protection, a bond, a promise. She realized that the king, for all his power and authority, relied on her. Not just for warning, but for guidance, for insight, for survival. And she, in turn, began to trust him in a way she had never trusted anyone. The door creaked as they opened it. Inside was a small chamber, dimly lit and filled with shadows that danced along the walls. A faint mist hung in the air, curling like smoke. Lyria's senses flared. The poison, the curse, was here, and stronger than she had expected. Suddenly, a figure moved in the shadows. Lyria stiffened. The figure was cloaked, hidden, but she could smell it, another faint trace of the ancient magic she had been following. Atheron's hand went to his sword, ready to strike. "Step forward," he commanded. The figure froze. Then, as if realizing they had been discovered, they vanished into the shadows, leaving behind only the faint curl of smoke and a chill that crept along the walls. Lyria's heart raced. They know I'm here," she whispered. "They're testing me. Or luring me." Atheron nodded. "And you sensed them. Alone. No one else would have known. That is your gift, Lyria. And it may be the only thing that saves us." Hours passed as they traced the traces of magic through the corridors. Each step, each turn, was guided by Lyria's instincts. The poisoner or whoever controlled the curse had been careful, leaving subtle hints only someone with her sensitivity could follow. By evening, they returned to the king's chambers, exhausted but not defeated. Atheron studied her as she collapsed into a chair near the fire. "You are remarkable," he said softly. "And yet, you are afraid. I can see it." I am," she admitted. "I have never faced anything like this before. And now, it feels like it is everywhere." Atheron's expression was unreadable. "That is because it is," he said. "The curse is tied to you. It will follow you, as it has followed your family for generations. But tonight, you have proven that you can fight it, that you can see what others cannot. And that is why I trust you." Lyria looked up at him, feeling a mixture of awe and fear. She had saved his life once. Now, she realized, she would have to stand by him again and again. The bond forming between them was fragile, unspoken, and charged with tension. She sensed it in every glance, every word, every shared silence. Just as she was beginning to relax, a soft knock echoed through the chamber door. Lyria froze. Atheron's eyes darkened. "Who is it?" he demanded. No answer came. But a faint scent drifted under the door, a smell both familiar and chilling. Lyria's stomach dropped. The curse. It had returned, closer than ever. Atheron moved to the door, hand on the hilt of his sword. "Stay behind me," he said. Lyria nodded, trembling, as he opened the door. The corridor was empty, but the air shimmered faintly with the presence of magic. She could feel it moving, searching, testing, and then she realized someone inside the palace had been waiting, watching, using her gift, following her. The king looked at her, dark eyes steady. "We are not safe," he said. "Not yet. And whoever sent this, they will not stop until they understand the true power of your senses." Lyria felt the weight of those words pressing down on her. She had saved the king, yet she understood now that this was only the beginning. Her gift had drawn her into a dangerous world of curses, secrets, and power. And the bond between her and the Alpha King would be tested in ways she could not yet imagine. As night fell over Verathorn Castle, the two of them sat together, the fire casting long shadows on the walls. Outside, the wind whispered through the towers, carrying with it the faint echo of old magic. And somewhere, in the hidden corners of the palace, the curse waited, patient, silent, and ready to strike again. The night sky over Verathorn stretched like a dark ocean, dotted with silver stars. A soft wind whispered through the castle towers, carrying the faint scent of herbs, stone, and the lingering traces of magic. Inside the palace, King Atheron and Lyria prepared for what they both knew was inevitable. The curse that had stalked the castle, that had threatened the king's life, was now closer than ever, and it would not stop until it had tested them both. In the private chambers, Atheron examined an ancient scroll spread across the table. The parchment was brittle. The ink faded. But the runes etched upon it glowed faintly in the firelight. The words were old, older than any living memory, and spoke of curses that could travel through bloodlines, using the senses of their bearers to track and destroy those they sought to punish. Lyria stood beside him, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Her senses were on high alert. The faintest hint of danger made her stomach twist, her heart race. She had followed the traces of the curse through corridors, chambers, and hidden passages, guiding the king like a light in the dark. Yet even now, she felt the weight of it pressing closer, as though the very walls of the palace were alive with its presence. "You understand what must be done," Atheron said quietly, his dark eyes fixed on her. "This curse is tied to you, Lyria. To stop it, we must confront its origin. You must face it, and I must stand beside you." Lyria nodded slowly. I understand. But what if I fail? Her voice was barely audible, fragile in the silence of the room. "You will not fail," he said firmly, placing a hand over hers. The warmth of his touch grounded her, gave her courage she did not know she had. "We face it together. Whatever comes, we face it as one." The king led her through the castle gates and out into the moonlit night. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of pine and frost. They traveled to the Spirit Wood, a forest older than the kingdom itself, where ancient spirits were said to watch over the balance of life and magic. The trees were massive, their trunks twisted like ancient giants, and the shadows among them shifted as though alive. As they moved deeper into the forest, Lyria could feel the curse pulsing through the air, stronger here than anywhere else. Her nose twitched. Her skin tingled. She could feel it wrapping around the trees, curling around the roots, seeking her, testing her. The ancient magic was not just poison now, it was a living force, hungry for the life of the king and the Omega alike. "This is where it began," Lyria whispered. "Where my ancestor broke the pact. The spirits cursed our bloodline, and it has haunted us ever since." Atheron's eyes were sharp, scanning the forest. "Then we end it here," he said. "You will face it. I will protect you, and together, we will break the curse." They reached a clearing at the heart of the forest. Moonlight poured down, illuminating the ground in silver. The air shimmered with energy, the very atmosphere vibrating with the power of the curse. Shadows twisted and moved along the edges of the clearing, whispering in a language long forgotten. Lyria's legs trembled, but she stood firm. She could feel the curse's presence, a coil of cold magic that sought to overwhelm her senses. Her breathing grew shallow. The curse was powerful, older and darker than anything she had imagined. And yet, she felt something else too. A strange familiarity. A recognition, as though the magic knew her and was testing her at the same time. Atheron stepped closer, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "You are not alone," he said. "Do not let it frighten you. Do not let it control you." Lyria nodded, focusing. She closed her eyes, following the threads of magic through the air. The curse was in the forest, in the ground, in the very trees around them. She could sense it moving, searching, trying to bind her and the king together in death. "You must breathe it in," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "Only by facing it, only by letting it touch you fully, can it be broken." Atheron's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" I mean, I must allow the curse to touch me, to feel it, to accept it. Only then can it be undone." She looked at him, fear and determination mixing in her gaze. "It may hurt, it may even kill me, but I have to try." Atheron's jaw tightened. "I will not let you face it alone," he said. "If this is how it must be, then I stand with you. Always." The clearing seemed to darken as the shadows gathered. The curse swirled around them, a wind of cold magic that pressed against their skin. Lyria's senses flared. She could feel it entering her mind, her body, trying to overwhelm her, trying to force her to falter. Her vision blurred, and the world seemed to twist around her. Atheron wrapped his arms around her, steadying her. "Do not fight it," he whispered. "Do not resist. Let me share your burden." Lyria inhaled deeply, letting the magic flow into her. It was like breathing in a storm, cold, sharp, and alive. Pain flared through her body, but she clung to the king, feeling his strength and focus anchor her. The curse tried to twist her, to frighten her, to make her retreat. But she remembered his words. They faced it together. The shadows coalesced in the center of the clearing, forming a figure made entirely of twisting darkness. Its eyes glowed faintly, and it spoke in a voice that echoed through the forest. "You cannot stop me, child of curse blood," it said. "You carry the mark of your ancestor, and I will claim what is mine." Lyria's lips trembled, but she stood taller, drawing strength from the king beside her. "I will not let you," she said. "I face this. I face you. And I will break your hold over me." The dark figure lunged forward, a wave of magic crashing over her. Lyria gasped but did not retreat. Atheron held her close, his presence a shield against the force. Together, they stood firm. She closed her eyes and focused, letting her senses guide her. The threads of magic tangled around her mind, but she reached into them, following them to their source. The curse was tied to her ancestor, yes, but it could not endure the strength of someone willing to face it fully, someone who had courage and heart. With a final, deep breath, Lyria extended her senses to the very center of the darkness. She felt the pain, the anger, the hunger of the curse, but she did not fight it. She let it pass through her, let it touch her, let it burn. And as she did, the shadows began to dissolve, the figure faltering, losing its shape. Atheron whispered in her ear, steady and strong, "You are doing it. You are breaking it." The storm of magic reached its peak. Lyria trembled, her knees nearly giving way. But the king held her, steady and unwavering. And then, with a final, shattering pulse, the curse shattered. The dark figure screamed silently, dissolving into nothingness. The forest fell silent, the wind stilled, and the moonlight shone more brightly than ever. Lyria collapsed to her knees, exhausted but alive. Atheron knelt beside her, lifting her gently into his arms. "You did it," he said softly. "You saved us both." Tears welled in her eyes, and she allowed herself a small, weary smile. "We did it," she corrected, leaning against him. Together. For a long moment, they sat in the clearing, the world around them calm and still. The curse was broken. The threat was gone. And for the first time, Lyria felt a sense of freedom she had never known. Atheron looked down at her, his dark eyes full of something unspoken. "You are remarkable," he said. "Not just for your gift, but for your courage. You faced what I could not face alone. You faced the storm, and survived." Lyria's heart swelled. She had always hidden, always stayed in the shadows. But here, in the moonlight, with the king holding her, she felt seen, truly seen. "Thank you," she whispered, "for trusting me, for staying with me. I would follow you anywhere." Atheron replied, his voice low and steady. "Through curses, shadows, and storms, you are not alone, Lyria. Not ever." The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faint echo of the spirits that had watched over the forest. Somewhere in the distance, the stars shone brighter, as if acknowledging the bond that had been formed. The king and the Omega, united not just by duty, but by courage and trust, began their journey back to the palace. Though the danger had passed, the world had shifted. Lyria was no longer just a servant. She was a partner in fate, a bearer of a gift that had saved a king. And Atheron, he was no longer just the Alpha King. He was a man who had faced death and darkness, and had chosen to protect and trust someone small yet powerful, someone who had changed his life forever. As they stepped through the gates of Verathorn Castle, the first rays of dawn touched the towers. The kingdom awaited, its people unaware of the trial that had unfolded, the storm that had passed, and the bond that had been forged. And though the palace was safe for now, both Lyria and Atheron knew that this was only the beginning. The world was full of magic, shadows, and secrets yet to be revealed. But together, they would face whatever came, side by side.